Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. It's Monday, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
So Alison might be muting herself off and on. I know there's stuff going on in her house, but yes. I'm here,
Yeah.
Cindy, I'm here. And so I'm going to do a little introduction of today's topic. Allison and I sometimes sit for a long time and discuss what topics we're going to do on this podcast, especially over the past year with all the news cycles that have happened that have been so unprecedented. We spend time discussing this because we always want to make sure that we're maintaining the integrity of this podcast and staying in our lane. We look at what are the goals for the work we do on this podcast, and we want to stay within the parameters of those goals. In the past week or so, we're starting to hear stories again about children drawing and pretending their feelings, about children asking hard questions. And Alison and I looked at each other and said, well, that's our lane and we need to address it. Now, we've addressed it somewhat before, especially in the beginning of the whole COVID-19 issue, but we need to address it, I think, from a slightly different angle. This time, people, sometimes I think adults are not aware of how their actions, and how much news they digest might be impacting children and what to do about that. And then they don't know what to do when the children do what they do, which is express themselves in ways that make adults uncomfortable, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
So we felt like it's our lane to ensure that we're working with and raising children in a way that is responsible in regard to their social emotional development.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things that Alison and I have a whole list in front of me in my terrible handwriting. So Alison will correct me if I'm wrong. It's really bad, folks. When I write with young children, I'm so careful, but I wasn't careful today. So, one of the challenges of the time that we live in, and actually before this past year, we've had a lot of challenges with the fact that news is on our television sets 24 hours a day. It's accessible here, there, and everywhere. And when major events happen, we get very drawn, I think, to this cycle of news where they report something that's new and then they repeat it and embellish and repeat it and embellish, repeat it and embellish. And they have 24 hours to fill. So I totally get why they do that. And then Alison and I were talking about how this can impact young children because, again, that's what we do on this podcast. We wanted to let you know that you need to be really conscious of watching or listening to the news within earshot of your early learners too much. 24-hour day news is too much for any of us, I think.
For adults too. Yeah, for adults too.
It's a lot.
It's stressful to listen to that. 24
hours a day.
24 hours a day.
It's stressful. I found it stressful when there were weather events. It's just
stressful
a 24
no matter what.
24-hour bombard me with the news. So here's our tip for you, having to do with the young children. Be very careful what's playing in the background in your home. Mm-hmm. Be very careful what you're watching when you think they're doing something else, because you don't know if they're listening. And I'm just going to propose that this is why headphones and earbuds were invented. Right. If you're an adult, you make decisions for you and what stresses you out. If you want to be connected to whatever news is happening over the coming weeks, because we are in a news cycle now that's going to be ongoing and have ebbs and flows. So if you want to be connected to it over the coming weeks, try being connected to it in a way where the children don't have to hear it so much. They can't process it. Certainly if adults have trouble processing 24-hour day news, children have trouble processing a whole lot less than that of the news. So be conscious of that. When you think they are not listening, guess what?
They are.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, they hear it.
They hear your television or your podcast or whatever you're on. They hear the YouTube videos. They hear you adults in the same home talking to each other. Some of this is going to be unavoidable. You're going to maybe talk to each other or be changing channels on your television, and you're going to come across something, and it's just sort of unavoidable that it's now in the air in your house. So that's why we need to make conscious decisions about when it is not unavoidable. What am I putting on? How long am I leaving it on? Who can hear it? Should I be wearing headphones or earbuds to watch this? And that's really what I want to say about that. Whatever you're watching, really think critically about how it, what happens in our world is always sort of in the ether. It becomes part of the world and the environment and who we are. And be careful how much you add to it when you can intentionally make another decision.
Right. I also feel that children can sense how it might make you feel. So if you are watching it out of a sense of like need to know or an anxiety or whatever it is, they are going to feed off of that, how you feel, just like they always do in any event, So if it's something that is causing you, I don't know, anxiety, worry, whatever, they're going to sense it. So if you want them to not also feel worry, maybe turn on something for a little while that doesn't give you those kind of feelings,
Right.
Or get the news in a way that it's not going to affect it, read it on your phone, use your earbuds.
You can read it, use your earbuds. Alison, I suspect that there are people who are going to say to us now, well, why didn't you talk about this a week ago? And I'm going to tell you why we didn't talk about it a week ago, and then we'll go on to our next tip. We didn't talk about it a week ago because we felt so much information was being put out in the world about children's reactions to the news that we thought, people are, it's out there, it's there. We don't need to add our voices. We talked about this in the beginning of the COVID-19 situation. Yeah. People could go back to that episode. Let's do something to take people's minds maybe off what was going on. And we also, again, we make very conscious decisions about what's on this podcast.
Yeah.
And why are we doing it now instead of then? We're doing it now because of the things that Alison and I both are experiencing and hearing and the questions that we're getting from people. And that's why now.
Yeah.
Here's another question that's been asked in both our environments, just in different ways. And that's how do we know that children are aware at any level of what's happening, and what do we do if they are? So with very young children, with the early learners that we talk about, it comes out when they're pretending, when they're drawing, when they're telling stories, a lot when they're pretending actually. And sometimes they'll just directly say something, but it's more often that we have to observe what they're doing to see if it's had any impact. So you may be observing them pretending, drawing, making up stories, and you realize that whatever is going on in the world is seeping into what they're doing. That's not uncommon. That's one of the things that Alison and I have discussed with other people over the course of the last week. I think we may have covered some of this in the past, but it bears repeating. When a child asks you a direct question, then you need to ask another direct question. And that question has to be, what do you know about this? You have to figure out what they know or think they already know.
Yeah.
And if they are pretending or drawing, I don't know about you, Alison, if they are pretending or drawing, what I would do is say, tell me about that. Just to see what they say, see if they were going to tell me about that. When children are pretending, even when it's not something like that, I often go over to them and say, tell me the story. What story are you in? Just so I know what they're thinking for the dramatic play. So you can say to them, tell me the story. What story are you in? Or if they're drawing, you can go over and say, oh, tell me about that, and see what they say.
Yeah. And then usually after that discussion, I usually will ask, how does that make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Because my aim, my focus is on them and how this is affecting them social emotionally. So I want to know, how does that make you feel? And then I could maybe help them through how the feelings of how this event affected them,
Children might just want reassurance that
right.
that they're okay. Young children, they're very egocentric. We know that from the theorist Jean Piaget. And it holds true. So young children are very egocentric, and primarily what they think about is how things affect them. That's what they think about. What is this going to, so they worry about how events affect them. And those might be the concerns they express to you. So sometimes they just need some reassurance, that they're with people that they love and all will be well. And then you can all move on. You don't have to belabor the point.
I wouldn't dwell on it. Yeah.
Right. You don't have to belabor anything, whatever they say. I also, Allison made an excellent point before. You're not muted now, right? No, you're not.
No.
You made an excellent point before about the importance of adults not refusing to talk about it if children somehow bring it up. I do understand why systems like school systems, childcare, right?
Yeah.
Why they would say to their staff, please remember not to bring this up during the workday when children are here. I totally get that.
Oh, I get it.
At certain ages, right? We're talking about very young children.
Ages.
I'm not talking about high school, right?
Yeah.
And even in high school, I mean, give the kids a break, do something else. But at any rate,
right?
Unless you're in social studies having some kind of discussion, let them go do math in math. But I think, at this age, I do understand the reminders that you and I both have been hearing about to staffs that, just please proceed with the children's day. They're very young. I understand that. I am concerned, though, that people will take that as, and if there's a silent and if they bring it up, you're not allowed to talk about it. And that's where the danger comes in.
Right. Because we need to talk about it, right? The only way for things to get better is to talk about it. And the only way that the children will feel better is to talk about it.
Well, that's what we mean by things getting better. Look, this is not a news show. So what we mean by things getting better is your child being more comfortable. That's what we mean.
Then
we want your child to be comfortable in your home and be comfortable in school. So how do we make that better?
Yeah.
We don't ignore their thoughts, their fears. And this holds true for everything. You can't, whatever is happening, I've worked with kids where they've had really tough home life situations, let's say. And the adults who were their caregivers during the day were not comfortable discussing that child's family's issues. And I get that. And I'm not saying go to the child and say, hey, heard what's happening in your house. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
But if the child comes to you with concerns, we also can't look at them and say, I'm not talking about that with you.
Well, we've had many episodes here about validating a child's emotions and feelings. And I feel like when you sit there and be like, well, we're not talking about that, that just is going to be like, okay, well, then I can't talk about that. And it's happening to me. So I'm just going to shut it down and down and down. And then that, it's not, you should just validate the feelings, and be like, okay, let's talk about how this makes you feel. Like our focus should be on how they are developing emotionally through this.
We need to make sure that we are helping them through what is like a jungle of emotions. They need our assistance to do that. And for us to help sort it out, make it right-sized. Children have huge feelings. And it's only with the help of adults that we can help kind of make it right-sized. And we do that by comforting them and nurturing them. And ignoring them. I'll tell you what, ignoring them is not the way. It's not the way when they are crying, when they are, when they are being oppositional, when they're ignoring them. We know now, we didn't always know this, but we know now that ignoring them is just not the pathway to them being able to self-regulate. So you can think about all that. I had an interesting conversation with somebody when I was doing a professional development training this week, asked me a question. We were talking about children's books and children's literature and how some of that literature is graphic, sometimes or violent. I mean, think of any children's story that you've ever read. They're pretty bad. So, and so the conversation we were having in this training was about reading or not reading these books. It was just a conversation, right? So we're going back and forth. And one teacher said to me, you know, she named a book. In this book, and it was a very well-known book, the word hate is in this book. And a child stopped her reading and said, that's a very bad word. And she said to me, how would you have approached that? And I said, I think that what I would have done in the moment is look at the child and said, hate means, they don't even know what these words mean.
They don't really know what it means.
So I said, I would have said to him, hate means really, 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 really not like. Yeah. And people call it a bad word because it's not kind. And I would say that because kind is a word that I use with young children all the time, and they know what it means. It is not kind. And remember that we want to be kind to people. So that's why people tell you hate is a bad word. You have to explain it to them. And I said to this teacher, I would have had that conversation if for no other reason than to help the child sort it out. And here's what the child is sorting out. Someone has told me that that's a bad word, and it's in the book that they're reading to me in school. So we have to help them sort it out. Yes, it's in this book. It's not something I want to say to people though, right? Because it's not kind, but you have to do this whole explanation. Yeah. And I think it's true for all this too, that we need to say to them, here, let me help you sort things out. And you know what? Every family sorts things differently based on their personal ideology and beliefs. And that's not for Alison and I to say. What we're here to say is your job is to help them sort it out. Yeah. But you don't have to initiate it. The children will initiate it. When they think they know something that they need your help to sort out, again, it will seep into their pretend, it will seep into their drawings and creations, anything they're being creative with. It'll seep into music. All of a sudden they'll be hitting the drum harder than they used to. Yeah. It will, anything where they get to create or do on their own, it's gonna seep into it. Count on it. Watch for it, and just help them, ask them what they think they know, how it makes them feel, and help them sort it out. However you do that in your family.
Right.
Okay, so I think that was our lane, Alison. What do you think?
I think that was our lane.
I think we stayed in it. I think we successfully stayed in it.
I think we did.
I think we should think about for next week. Mm-hmm. I think we should, every so often, Alison and I say to each other, we need a lighter episode next week. And I feel like I need a lighter episode.
I think so by next week we will.
I think we can come up with a topic.
I think we can figure that out. Yeah.
But if you all who are listening are thinking, boy, I could use a lighter episode too, send us a topic. Alison's going to tell us how you can send us your thoughts and topics, and see if we can come up with something where we may laugh a little more.
Laugh a little bit. Episodes. Yeah. All right. So you can reach us on our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. There's a comment section there. You can always find us and reach us there. You can also go onto Facebook. We are there under How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast. You can message us or send us a little comment there. We are on all sorts of podcast providers.
All of them, I think.
All of them at this point, including Amazon Music, and you can watch us on YouTube. And when you do go on any of those, please rate us 5 stars because we're really awesome. All right.
Also, do us a favor and subscribe, particularly on YouTube. We haven't said this in a few episodes, I think. Yeah. Even if you're not going to watch us on YouTube on a steady basis, please go to our podcast and subscribe, because the more subscribers we get, kind of the more incentives you get from YouTube and whatever. Just little things like being able to use your own address, or there's nothing.
Yeah,
huge. I promise it's nothing huge. But we want to gather as many subscribers as we can to have some clout on YouTube. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly would. And we do welcome your comments about the topics on the podcast, and we hope that it's helpful to you. We hear from people very frequently and we love it.
Yeah, we love it.
Always makes our day.
Yeah.
So we have been ending the episodes with the word hope. And so we're going to wish you hope again. And I think we need it with, everybody. Did you hear this, Alison? Here, I'm going to put in a little side note. I was looking at social media, which often is my first mistake. And people have been commenting where we live about how the vaccine appointments are completely full and this is going to take a really long time. And so we wish you hope, because I think we're all going to be in a holding pattern, or a lot of us will be in a holding pattern for quite a while.
Yeah.
So hopefully things will improve. So there you go. Hope.
Yeah.
And tune in with us next Monday. We will be back and maybe we will be laughing. Catch you then, peeps.
Bye, guys.